Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria. Amen.
That of
Distinguished colleagues, we delayed a bit to enable you have copies of the votes and proceedings, which for today are really very buggy. So for those who may not have, you are permitted to look into your colleagues so that we can proceed because they are still producing the votes. Quite bulky, but we have to move on with the business of the day. So for those who have page 611, page 612, well, you are here, they will give you before we finish. Even if in the course of the proceedings, if you have any issue with any part of it, for today, we can bend our rules in line with section 1B of the standing orders of the Senate to enable you point it out at any point of the proceeding. Page, yes.
Page 611, Mr. President, I'm sorry to take us back. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Michael Okwemi Bamidele, CON Ekiti Central. I want to bring our attention to clause 3B on page 611. Specifically, number 3B 3B2, 3B2, Senator Mongono Mohammed Tahir. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Mongono is the chief whip of the Senate, as we all know, and to the extent that number 11 says principal officers are members of this committee, Mr. President, the name that was intended to be here is distinguished Senator Kaka Shehu, S-A-N, because Senator Mongono is automatically a member by virtue of his being a principal officer. Otherwise, it would mean that the Northeast has no designated representative in this committee. That's my observation.
I thought I should even further correct you, that even that page 11 is not correct. Page 611, 3B11. When we met in closed session, we said that was before the passage of the second reading, the tax reform bill. We had set up these committees before we passed, we read the bill for the second time and committed it to the Committee on Finance for further legislative action. It was agreed that that committee will, in the event of any gray area, meet with members of the executive. I can recall putting principal officers, but this will also exclude presiding officers. So we had a 10-man committee headed by Senator Abamoro, minority leader. If we had principal officers, it would be headed by the Senate leader, not by Senator Mongono in terms of seniority. So that will also have to be corrected. Senator Ashiru, you are here. Senator Ashiru, listen to me. It is not just a function of Senator Mongono. It is a function of the fact that when we met in closed session, before we passed the tax reform bills for second reading, before we had second reading, we set up this committee that in the event of gray area, we will arrange a meeting with, I will arrange a meeting with the necessary quarters of the executive for them to meet and sort out the gray areas and refer to the Senate. There was no time we said principal officers should be members of that committee. That was why we put the minority leader as the chairman. If we said the principal officers should be members of that committee, it is not the minority leader that would have been chairman. Do you now understand me? Am I speaking the same thing that you took part in? So this is not in line with what we agreed. Otherwise, you would have been. So I would suggest that you request that we change 3B 2 to distinguished Senator Kagashewu San, and then we delete 11 to enable Senator Abamoro remain the chairman of the committee as I agreed in closed session. That was what was agreed. Please, distinguished Senator Oji Takalo.
Mr. President, you are very right. That was what was agreed. There is no time in the Senate ranking. You cannot make members of the leadership of the Senate when the Senate leader is there. Minority cannot lead. What we agreed is that Abba Mauro will be the chairman, and we have met also, the committee met. So you're absolutely right. And Start doing what is right on the table. You are right.
God bless you. So now, leader of the Senate, the committee has met a couple of times to look into the tax reform bills and also to obtain from people who concern individuals gray areas of concern. They have met, and they met in the office of the minority leader. And that was the agreement of the Senate closed session. So there was no time that the Senate said that principal officers should be members of that committee. It would not have been headed by Senator Abamoro because of ranking and because of seniority. So you go ahead to correct 3B2
Mr.
and
President,
also request for us to delete.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I believe actually there are no issues of contention here whatsoever. May I, Mr. President and esteemed colleagues, just move that we delete section 3B. And in doing that, also, that will leave section 3B, that will delete section 3B 11. And in doing that, we leave section 3B 2 as it is, Senator Mongono. Mr. President, our decision
Sorry,
to make the minority leader chairman was to show our transparency.
Sorry, are we disagreeing?
No, not at all.
We are saying that for Senator Mongono,
Yes,
who is the chief whip of the Senate, if he's in the committee, that he will be chairman. And that when we met in closed session,
yes,
we did not include principal officers. Therefore, we should delete section 3B2. Senator Mongono should not be in that committee. And then we should delete 3B11, adding all principal officers of the Senate, because the committee is headed by the minority leader. It's very clear. We don't need to replace it with Senator Kaka or anybody.
Yeah, Mr. President.
So we leave it as a 9-man committee headed by Senator Abamoro.
No, one, that would mean the Northeast is not represented at all.
Then in that
case, one
case,
representative per geopolitical zone.
So you can put
and then
Senator,
we adopted the chairman of finance, appropriation, and national planning. Other than that, the 6 members were one per geopolitical zone. Aha. So, sir, we chose the minority leader. So you actually suggested to show our transparency. That's why we said minority should be heard. Senator Mongono was brought in, as was announced by you, Your Excellency, to represent the Northeast.
It was an anomaly.
Not as a principal officer.
I just told you that.
Okay, so may we then substitute Senator Shehu Kaka?
Yes.
Okay.
Replace it with Senator Shehu Kaka.
I so move, sir.
Yes, minority leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the amendment that has been made to the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 4th December 2024.
So distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved by the Senate leader, seconded by the minority leader, that the votes and proceedings of the Senate in respect of page 611, please look at it, page 611, setting up an ad hoc committee to meet with some members of the executive and headed by distinguished Senator Patrick Abamoro. We should delete or replace the name of Senator Mohammed Tahir Mongono with the name of Senator Kaka Shehu to represent the Northeast interests. And then we should delete 3B11, including principal officers. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So please replace Senator Mongono with Senator Kaka Shehu and delete principal officers. Senator Abamoro, you are still the chairman, and continue your work, and then you revert to the Senate as necessary. Page 612. Page 613. Page 614. Page 615. Page 616. Page 617. Page 618. Page 619. Page 620. Page 621. Page 622. Page 623. Page 624. Page 625. Page 626. Page 627. Page 629. Page 630. Page 631. Page 632. Page 633. Page 634. Page 635. Page 636. Page 637. Page 638. Page 639. Page 640. Page 641. Page 642. Page 643. Page 644. Page 6. Page 645. Page 646. Page 647. Yes, page 645. Yes. Police, not the
Police Training School, one. There's no N. It starts with W straight. Strike out N. Everything remains correct, but N is not there.
police training.
School, one. Makwede
include-
Benue State. The way it's written here, it sounds boyish. It's not a chief name. It's a chief name. It's not an Igbo name, sir.
I didn't hear you.
I said the way it's written is one. We don't have one. It's one. It starts with W.
That is page.
Training school, one. It's a chief name, not Igbo name. I'm not married to Igbo, sorry. I only have Igbo family friends.
So we should remove the N.
Yes, N should be deleted.
So it will not sound like a Southeastern.
Yes, sir.
He's the chairman of police affairs. Because there may be a place like this that you don't know. I didn't even see the one in Akwa Ibom. They even know what name it is. That's why I'm wondering. Four, six, seven. Okay, 467. Okay, all right. So I'll look at it. So please remove the N. Page 643, 644, 645, 646, and page 647. Yes, go ahead. Recommended. What page is it? 647, right? Second line. Police University of Science and Technology, Ogun State, Erinya. Police Specialist Training Institute, Police School of Finance and Administration. Hope they'll be able to fund all these schools. Page 648. Page 649. Page 650. Page 651. Page 652. Page 653. Page 654. Page 655. Page 656. Page 57. 657. 658. 659. Page 6. Page 661. Page 662. Page 663. Page 664. Page 665. Page 666. Page 667. Page 668. Page 669. Page 670. Page 671. Page 672. Page 673. Verse 674. Verse 675. Verse 676. Verse 678, 77. Verse 678. Verse 679. Verse 68. Verse 681. Verse 682. Verse 683. Verse 684. Verse 684. Verse 685. Verse 686. Verse 687. Verse 688. Verse 689. Verse 690. Verse 691. Verse 692. Verse 693. Verse 694. Verse 695. Verse 696. Verse 697. Verse 698. Verse 699. Verse 700. Verse 671. Verse 672. Verse 673. Verse 674. Verse 675. Verse 676. Verse 670. Verse 6. Sorry. Verse 766. 700. 701. 702. 703. 704. 705. 706. 707. 708. 709. That's true. 710. Verse 6. Verse 711. Verse 712. 713. 714. 700. 713. 714. 715. 716. 717.
Page 717. Page 718. Page 719. Page 720. 721. 722. 723. 724. 725. 726. 727. 728, 729, 730, 731, 732, 733, 734, 735, 736, 738, 737, 738, 739, 740, 741, 742, 743, 744, 745, 746, 747, 748, 749, 750, page 751, page 752, page 753, page 754, page 755, page 756, page 757, page 758, page 759, page 760, 761, 762, 763, 764, 765, 766, 767, 768, 769, 770, 771, 772, 773, 774, 775, 776, 777, 778, 779, 780, 781, 782, 783, 784, 785, 786, 787, 788, 789, 790, 791, 792, 793, 794, 795, 796, 797, 798, 799, 800. Page 801, page 802, 803, 804, 805, 806, 807, 808, 809, 810, 811, 812, 813, 814, 815, 816, 817, 818, 819, 820. Page 821, 822, 823, 824, 25, 826, 827, 828, 29, 830. Eight 31, 832, 33, 34, 835, 836, 837, 838, 839, 840, 841, 842, 843, 844, 845, 846, 847, 848, 849, 850, 851, 852, 853, 54, 855, 856, 857, 858, 859, 860. 861, 862, 863, 864, 865, 866, 867, 868, 869, 870, 871, 872, 873, 874, 875, 876, 877, 878, 879, 880, 881, 882, 883, 884, 885, 886, 887, 88, 89, 890, 891, 892, 893, 894, 895, 896, 897, 898.
898, 899, 900, 901, 902, 903, 904, 905, 906, 907, 908, 909, 910, 911, 912, 913, 914, 915, 916, 917, 918, 919, 920, 921, 922, 923, 924, 925, 926, 927, 928, 929, 930, 931, 932, 933, 934, 935, 936, 937, 938, 939, 940, 941, 942, 943, 944, 945, 946, 947, 948, 949, 950, 951, 952, 953, 954, 955, 956, 957, 958, 959, 906, 961, 962, 963, 964, 965, 966, 967, 968, 969, 970, 971, 972, 973, 974. Distinguished, yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm sorry to take you slightly back to 645, where the correction of the name one was made. And they put Makodi there, which is not supposed to be so. So it's supposed to be Wanune, Benue State, not Makodi, Benue State.
So it should be Wanune, Benue State. Yes, clerk, please note. Distinguished Senator Victor Ome, we wish to move a motion for the adoption of the bulky.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ome, OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate adopts the votes and proceedings of our sitting of 4th of December, 2024. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Natasha Ogboti. No,
Mr. President, sir?
You speak from your seat.
Okay, very.
You may wish to second the motion for the adoption of the votes and
Very,
proceedings.
very well, sir. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Natasha Akpotudua, representing the good people of Kogi Central. I hereby stand to second the motion.
For the adoption of the votes and proceedings.
Oh, yeah, for the adoption of the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, the 4th of December, 2024. I so move.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion for adoption of the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, the 4th day of December 2024, as amended, has been moved and seconded. Those in support of the amended votes and proceedings say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, notification of courtesy call on the President of the Senate and distinguished senators by the members, chairman and members of the Code of Conduct Bureau. They will be in the National Assembly on a courtesy call by 3 p.m. today, Thursday, 5th day of December 2024. Conference room 301. The Senate leadership, chairman, vice chairman of various committees, particularly Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions, and other distinguished colleagues are invited to attend the meeting. Signed, Nedu Francis Akubweze, Clerk of the Senate. Distinguished colleague, we haven't reached point of order yet. Any petitions?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Ned Nwoko. I represent the good people of Delta North, Delta State. Mr. President, there is a petition here from one of my constituents from the Obi Enebuse community in Okwani local government. Mr. President, the petition is straightforward. It's a claim against Shell, SPDC, and Plat. And if you don't mind, Mr. President, I'll lay it on the table. Thank you, Mr. President.
May proceed to label the petition.
Point of orders.
Point of order, Mr.
Point of orders.
The petition has been referred to the Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions to report back to the Senate in 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Point of order, sir.
Yeah, leader has a point of order.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I'm writing on a point of order, which is Order 42 of our rules. Mr. President.
Order 42 of our rules.
Yes, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, can you open to Order 42? And you may read.
Thank you, sir. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor any debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, further in support of my point of order, I also cite Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, as well as the clear provisions of Section 62, subsections 1 and 4 of our Constitution. Mr. President.
You may read.
Oh, thank you. Mr. President, Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended reads as follows. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the Senate or the House of Representatives shall have power to regulate its own procedure, including the procedure for summoning and recess of the House. And then, of course, Section 62, subsection 1.
That is the Constitution.
Of the Constitution.
The ground norm.
Yes, sir.
Just repeat, because some people were not listening. Please.
Thank you, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, please listen to the sections of the Constitution that guide our proceedings.
Yes, sir. And Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the reason I'm relying on constitutional provisions rather than our rules is for members of public to also be well guided, that whatever we are doing is in accordance with the constitution of this country, which is the ground norm. Mr. President, again, I take section 60, which says, subject to the provision of this constitution, the Senate or the House of Representatives shall have power to regulate its own procedure, including the procedure for summoning and recess of the House. We are the legislative arm of government, and we take our instructions and guidance from this constitution, not from any other institution or individuals, no matter how highly placed, not from governors, not from any other person other than this constitution. Also, section 62, subsection 1, says the Senate or the House of Representatives may appoint a committee of its members for such special or general purpose as in its own opinion will be better regulated and managed by means of such a committee, and may, by resolution, regulation or otherwise, as it thinks fit, delegate any function exercisable to it to any such committee, as was done on the floor of this parliament yesterday and ratified through our votes and proceedings today, Mr. President. Subsection 4 of that same section 62 says, nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing such house to delegate to a committee the power to decide whether a bill shall be passed into law or to determine any matter which it is empowered to determine by resolution under the provisions of this Constitution. But the committee may be authorized to make recommendations to the Senate or the House on any such matter. Mr. President, the reason for all these constitutional points of order that I have raised is simply because I watched the Arise News last night.
Is that the television or radio?
Arise Television News. And what was reported was that this hallowed chamber had suspended further consideration of the tax reform bills before the Senate. The reporter even invited the governor of Nasarawa State and pointedly told the governor that now that the Senate had withdrawn, he used the word withdrawn, this tax reform bills, which Arise News described as conundrum, suggesting that they were confusing, they were problematic. What would you say, Mr. Governor? Are you happy that these bills have been withdrawn? And the governor said, I am not just happy because the bills have been withdrawn, but I'm happy because this will now give us a chance for all of us to discuss. Sir.
Arise News.
Yes, sir.
Asked the governor of Nasarawa State.
Yes.
Whether he was happy.
Yes, sir.
That the tax reform bills
had
been withdrawn by the Senate.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, what am I trying to say here? We do not move from one TV station to another. The privilege that we have is the floor of the Senate. This is where we do our deliberations. This is where we make the law. This is where we do effective representation of our people. And if we have issues to clarify, this is also the floor that we have, rather than issuing press statements. Mr. President, we just passed our votes and proceedings. We have just passed our votes and proceedings, which is a reflection of our deliberations of the previous legislative day, being yesterday. Nowhere in our votes and proceedings was it stated that we suspended further deliberations on the tax reform bill, because we did not. And I felt it would be important to place on record that this Senate did not suspend
or withdraw.
I will address that later, sir. This Senate did not suspend and does not intend to suspend deliberations, consideration of the tax reform bills. As to withdraw, Mr. President, this is simply my response. it was a misunderstanding of legislative process for anybody to have even reported that we had withdrawn the bills. The bills were executive bills transmitted to us by the executive arm of government through the office of Mr. President. It's only the executive arm that can withdraw these bills. They are not private member bills sponsored by any senator. So no senator is going to withdraw the bill. And there is no reason for these bills to be withdrawn. In a legislative process, it is normal that some people will have concern. It is normal that people will sit around those concerns and discuss. That is why, in its wisdom, this Senate, in referring this matter to the Senate Committee on Finance, gave them as much as 6 weeks. Our instruction was that deliberate, organize, public hearing, and submit your report not later than 6 weeks. It might not be up to 6 weeks, but if they choose to be up to 6 weeks, nobody will quarrel with them. 6 weeks is long enough in a country that wants progress for a consensus to be reached, for anybody who has concern to sit down and allow such concern to be addressed in overriding public interest. And in any case, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, we are continuing with the deliberation, with the consideration of this bill. We took all I expected the media to report yesterday, which was well reported by some sections of the media, was that the Senate, at its plenary session yesterday, took a further legislative action in the consideration of the bill. And what was the further legislative action that we took? From northwest of Adamu Aleros, through the north central of Abamoros, to the southeast of Oji Uzo Kalus, we drew out people, distinguished senators, from each geopolitical zone, and we constituted them into an ad hoc committee to, on our behalf, further interface. We were clear about what we were doing. The Senate Committee on Finance is in charge of public hearing, but we set up an ad hoc committee as a further legislative action to, on our behalf, interface. Even the president of the country, called on us to please, interface with the office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, which ordinarily also would have done in our public hearing. But even then, the executive requested for that. And we have set up an ad hoc committee to do that. So while the Finance Committee is working on its timeline, planning for the public hearing, we want this committee to also quickly engage. And the Deputy Senate President, yesterday in announcing this committee on your behalf, also said the ad hoc committee should treat this matter with urgency, with this power, and that the meeting should start from today. As a matter of fact, Mr. President, the meeting started yesterday. So the essence of what I am saying is that it's important that members of public are patient with us. They understand the legislative process that we have to follow. They understand our role in the Constitution. Any attempt from any quarter to intimidate the Parliament will be undemocratic. And we will not allow ourselves to be distracted. But we will encourage consensus, we will encourage discussions, engagement at all levels. But we cannot be bullied into adopting a certain procedure. As far as we are concerned, the tax reform bills are alive in this hallowed chamber. They are receiving consideration at various levels, and we are open to discussions, to negotiations, to interface. But let it not be said anywhere that we suspended further consideration of these bills. And also, it would be laughable for anybody to also think or say or report that the bills were withdrawn. Because like I said, there are executive bills that can only be withdrawn by the executive. And there's no reason to do so. because these bills we believe are in overriding public interest, and will do everything possible to ensure that across geopolitical interests, across, political parties, across every religious interest, everybody that has concern, civil society, everybody that has concern is given a chance to contribute to the passage of these laws. I thank you, Mr. President, and I conclude by saying that the tax reform bills for us are a work in progress, and we have the next 6 weeks to do this and finalize and pass it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, the Senate leader, it took a long time to elaborate on the point of order. You came under Order 42 and also the constitutional provisions. And the Constitution is the ground norm. We can't argue with the Constitution. And Order 42 says that we should not engage in debate. And we should not also bring about any controversial matter. But I must say that from your explanation, it will appear that Arise Television was totally misled into thinking that the bills were suspended or withdrawn by the Senate. Because I watched that news when the governor of Nasarawa was asked, now that the bills have been withdrawn, are you happy? The National Assembly, we were all elected to do our work. And that is the work of lawmaking in the overall interest of Nigeria. We do not do our work through social media, neither do we do it through any committee or congregation of the church or any forum of any nature. We do our work according to our conscience in the best interest of Nigerians. And the processes of lawmaking must be further explained to the public. The moment the bills went through second reading in the Senate, it simply means that the bills are alive. The next procedure is for the Committee on Finance to commence the process of consultations and public hearings with a view to bringing recommendations back to this hallowed chamber. But in the wisdom of the Senate yesterday, we had, in a closed session, set up a committee to be headed by the minority leader before the passage of the bill of the second reading. And we said, in the event that some people are either uneducated on some aspects of the bill, or confused, or there are gray areas to be sorted out, they should interface with the necessary executive quarters, from the chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service to the Attorney General of the Federation, and if need be, even Mr. President. That committee was an internal mechanism of the Senate, different from the Committee on Finance. And I think that was what was announced yesterday, that that committee should immediately move into work. They should move into action, since there seems to be some gray areas to be sorted out. And I want to thank distinguished Senator Abamoro, the chairman of the committee, because as soon as that announcement was made yesterday, he immediately started consultation. In fact, he has a meeting today that he has set up to enable him fast-track the process so that the chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance and members of the committee can commence public hearings either next week or as soon as practicable. Therefore, your point of order clearly explaining that the bills are alive, have not been suspended, the actions have not been suspended, the bills have not been withdrawn, and the bills have passed second reading in the Senate, and further legislative actions are taking place, including the setting up of this ad hoc committee. All those points are hereby sustained. Yes.
Point of orders.
Between Senator Izonaso.
Order.
Or just before you step in, I just I have the executive communication on this same bill. The federal government of Nigeria has issued communication. I just want to read part 6. It says it is pertinent to state that the government has nothing sinister to warrant the suggestions that the process is being rushed. And you can see we gave our committee 6 weeks, so you can't say we are rushing the process of legislation. And if 6 weeks is not enough, we will extend the time for the committee. So this is executive communication. In line with the established legislative procedure, the federal government welcomes meaningful inputs that can address whatever gray areas there may be in the bill or in the bills. In this vein, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has already directed the Federal Ministry of Justice and relevant agencies and officials to work on the drafts, or who worked on the drafts, to work closely with the National Assembly with a view to ensuring that all genuine concerns are addressed before the bills are finally passed by the National Assembly. So what was done yesterday was in line with even the directive of Mr. President. The ad hoc committee is working in line with the directive of the President. And it also shows that this Senate is composed of men of wisdom and foresight. Before even the President gave this directive, we had already, before we passed our second reading, set up an ad hoc committee in the event of any gray area. So if there is any governor or any stakeholder in Nigeria, where no matter whether the person is a religious leader or a businessman that has problem with the bill, you know where to go to. Public hearing. The Senate will not be bullied. We are doing our work in the interest of Nigeria. And by the time we come out with our final position, it will reflect the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. And not only that, any reform that we can make, painful as the reform may be, so long as this Senate is convinced that it is in the interest of Nigerians, we will go ahead with it with a view to bringing our economy on a forward march in support of the administration. But we will not also shy away from deleting or abrogating or stopping whatever we feel is not in the public interest. But for the tax reform bills, we believe that there are too many provisions there that would definitely help Nigerians. You can't imagine what it means for businesses that earn less than 50 million not to pay tax. You can't imagine what it means for multiplicity of taxes to be abrogated. You can't imagine what it means for people who earn less than the minimum wage or even minimum wage not to pay tax. So the exemptions are such that up to 100 million Nigerians will benefit from these tax reform bills. So let's not listen to social media. Let's not listen to Arise Television. And I hope they are well guided with the explanation of the Senate leader. Yes, the Senator also move.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My point of order is order 55, Rule 13. Behavior of senators in the Senate. With your kind permission, Mr. President, may I read Rule 13?
You may read it out.
Senators shall attend the sitting of the Senate properly dressed in non-traditional and formal attire. Mr. President, I've observed that one of us, Comrade Adams Oshimole, is not properly dressed. Yesterday, he wore Babariga with a cap that fitted him, but today he reversed back
to wear a comrade uniform. And this is not a chamber for comrades. Besides, Mr. President, he's not properly dressed. So you may wish to intervene, Mr. President. Thank you.
So, Senator Adams Oshimole, you came under Order 42 or
Order 55, Rule 13.
Order 55? Order 55:13 says, Senators shall attend the sittings of the Senate properly dressed in known traditional and formal attires. Senators shall attend Senate proceedings properly dressed in known traditional attires and in known traditional attires and formal attires. I want to say that I've noted the order raised by distinguished Senator Isunaso, but even looking at Senator Adams Oshimole with the hat very properly dressed, I want to, with due respect, say I've noted your observation, but I rule you out of order.
Point of order.
Yes. Point of order. Who? Point of order. Senator Kobandu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come under Order 41. A matter of urgent importance, public importance. If you permit, Mr. President, I will read. The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent.
Yes.
Mr. President, this motion is on
Order
41.
41. Only? Are you referring to Order 41 and 51?
51.
Or Order 41 alone?
41 and 51.
I'm sure you are referring to two orders, 41 and 51.
51.
Yes.
51 says, notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present.
Just give us more summary of what you intend to.
Mr. President, this motion is on the need for special intervention by the Senate to urge the Federal Ministry of Works to expedite action and complete the rehabilitation of the Umuahia-Ekote-Ekpene Federal Road to relieve the suffering of Nigerian motorists and address insecurity in the general area. I remain Austin Akobundu, representing Abia Central Senatorial District. Senate notes that the Umuahia-Ekote-Ekpene Road...
Don't be so fast. If you look at the provisions of Order 51.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. President.
It says,
I'm waiting for the
notice
leave.
shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceedings for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators. So this notice we are talking about, you need the consent of your colleagues. So you may be seated so that I hear from them. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished colleagues. With utmost respect to our dear colleague, distinguished Senator Akobundu, and also in defense of our rules, Senator Akobundu had raised this issue yesterday. He came under Order 41, and he was ruled with the leave of the Senate that this matter should come up today, being the next legislative day. This matter was supposed to have been submitted to him, to the Secretariat, this motion, to have been placed on the other paper as a substantive motion for today. So it cannot come on a second day to still come and raise the same issue under Order 41.1, because it was raised yesterday under Order 41, and we took the leave of the Senate for this matter to be brought today as a substantive motion. A substantive motion would have been a motion he had submitted to the Secretariat yesterday and placed on the other paper. So, Mr. President, in order that we protect our rules and this does not become a precedent, I will most respectfully say that the matter should be considered on the next legislative day as a substantive motion. So it should be directed to submit it to the Committee on Rules and Business. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, distinguished Senator Kobondo, it's clear that you have been granted permission by the Senate to proceed with your motion, but through substantive motion. In other words, you have to submit it to the Secretariat to be reflected in our order paper. Do you have it now?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Okay, so please pass it to the clerk so that we'll take it on the next legislative date. Is it the view of the Senate that it be allowed to submit same for the next legislative date? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So proceed to pass it so that they'll put it for the next day of proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other point of order? Yes, Senator Binojero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Bino Siaro, Adamawa South. I'm rising under Order 10, privileges. And with your permission, I read. Any senator may rise at any time to speak upon a matter of privilege suddenly arising, and he shall be prepared to move without notice a motion declaring that a contempt or breach of privilege has been committed, or referring the matter to the Committee of Ethics and Privileges. But if the matter is raised in Committee of the whole Senate, the chairman shall leave the chair to report progress. Mr. President, I believe my privilege as a senator has been breached because we have reviewed the votes and proceedings of yesterday, and many of us did not receive a copy. It has been amended, and the leader, in rising on his own point of order, quoted copiously from the votes and proceedings of yesterday, which I don't have. Well, some few people have it. But Mr. President, the issues that the leader raised concerned what transpired on the floor yesterday. And it was the Deputy Senate President that presided, and he's here. I heard what he said, but not having seen the votes and proceedings, I'm not able to determine whether what he said, the announcement he made yesterday, was properly reflected in the votes of proceedings. So, Mr. President.
Your point of order is sustained. So please, Clerk of the Senate, give him the votes on proceedings. The problem we have is that you notice it was more than voluminous today. So the production crew claimed that the machine started heating up. So they are still bringing the votes and proceedings. So that was why I suggested that if you are sitting close to somebody who has it, look into it. But they will definitely give you before we close today. Please, your point of order is noted and sustained. Yes, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, Very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Chartered Institute of Health Care Management of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, HB 1260. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, Chartered Institute of Healthcare Management of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, HB 1260, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a House bill, also standing in my name, on the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria Annan Act Amendment Bill 2024, HB 712. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate. Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, ANAN. That's the Act Amendment Bill 2024. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Aluero Adamu on the Rice Development Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, SB 541. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title here.
Clerk of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, Rice Development Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2024, SB 541, first reading taken. Clerk of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Osita Ngo on the National Planning Commission Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 627. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Yes, Clerk of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, National Planning Commission Act Amendment Bill 2024, SB 627, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Banigo Ipalibo on the Federal Universities of Technology Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 661. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, Federal National Planning Commission Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 627. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Sani Musa on the Nigerian Export Processing Zones Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 669. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Clerk of the Senate, you join the two bills together. First, Federal Universities of Technology Act Amendment Bill 2024, first reading taken. Secondly, Nigerian Export Processing Zones Act Amendment Bill, first reading taken. Distinguished colleagues, Federal Universities of Technology Act Amendment Bill 2024, first reading taken. Nigerian Export Processing Zones Act Bill 2024, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate, let me just point out that distinguished Senator Abamoro, together with members of your ad hoc committee of elders, you are allowed to proceed now to go and have your meeting with a view to engaging with the Attorney General of the Federation and the Chairman of FIRS. Please go with all the concerns you have collated, and thereafter you will be able to pass it to the Chairman of Finance Committee. In fact, he's also a member of that committee. The Chairman of Preparation will also join you. So by the time we go into public hearings from next week or thereabout, we will have done a holistic job on it. And I must point out that we are not in a hurry to pass the bills because we want the bills to meet the test of time. And we are not passing laws or acts of parliament here for a day. It is to lie beyond us. And so we must do a thorough jobs on each and every bill that is presented before us. So let the public not come and do our work for us. We are elected to do the job. But we must do a thorough job to meet the aspirations of Nigerians and in the best interest of the nation. So please proceed to go and have your meetings. Thank you. Yes, Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, the first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Power on the frequent collapse of the national grid and other related issues in the electricity sector. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Abaribe Enyinaya, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the report.
Dismissed Senator Abaribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Senate receives the report of the Committee on Power on the frequent collapse of the national grid and other related issues in the electricity sector. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Ositango.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ositangu. I'm here on behalf of Enugu West. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the interactive session with stakeholders on the frequent collapse of the national grid and other related issues in the electricity sector. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, the State Chairman of Power has moved a motion and seconded by the Deputy, by the whip of the minority whip of the Senate, that this August Assembly do receive the report of the Senate Committee on Power on the interactive session with stakeholders on frequent collapse of the national grid and other related issues in the electricity sector. Those in support that this report be presented before us say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The distinguished Senator Abaribe, very distinguished, ranking, experience, former deputy governor, eloquent, and of integrity, you may present your report.
Mr. President, thank you for all the adjectives. I can now go ahead to present the report.
Proceed to summarize your report.
The report will be summarized, but we will need to also put the background for this report. This report was not ordered by the Senate, but is part of our oversight function and responsibilities under Order 96, Rule 54 of our standing orders as amended, and Section 62 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which led us to invite the relevant stakeholders for an interactive session on Tuesday, October 29th. And Mr. President, this report, as everybody can see, is voluminous. So we will go direct to page 9 and page 11, the findings and the recommendations, so that we'll go direct to the matter. Mr. President, before I go to page 9, let me also give this Senate and Nigerians an idea of what it costs us for every time there's a collapse of the national grid. Usually when the grid collapses, plants that produce electricity are shut down. And so we have gone to actually find out from the operators of the plants what it costs them when they shut down their plant. Whenever a plant is shut down, they will have to restart that plant, and to restart that plant, which they call a black start, it costs far more than running the plant. For example, for Azura, which is one of the plants that we use, while it costs 105 $1,000 to run the plant. To restart it, we cost Nigeria $7.5 million. So, for any time that we have a shutdown occasioned by a grid collapse, 3 plants in Nigeria that supply most of our electricity needs, the one in Azura, the one in Delta State, and the one in Shiroro, to restart the plants cost Nigeria $25 million, or in Naira terms, 42.5 billion Naira, just to restart the plant. And if you now extend it to the rest of the operating plants in Nigeria, the humongous money that is being spent in Nigeria for grid collapse is actually not quantifiable. And so today we want to go to the findings. What are those reasons that have led to incessant grid collapse? In page 9, you will find, number 1, aging infrastructure. Our grid is more than 50 years old, and therefore it occasions frequent breakdown. Number 2, operational challenges. And this is worsened by power rejection by distribution companies due to their own issues. Number 3, abandoned projects in the power sector. We are presently undertaking by the Senate a comprehensive review of all abandoned projects in Nigeria, and what we see, we are saying trillions of dollars of abandoned projects. Number 4, regulatory gaps. We find also that all the agencies that are supposed to regulate the electricity sector have a lot of issues. Number 5, security of our power infrastructure. A short while ago, the whole of the North never had any power. Why? Because somebody caught the electricity grid, and what we see is that people deliberately target our power lines and destroy them just to make the country ungovernable. Number 6, lack of a supervisory control and data acquisition system. This control system is called SCADA, and it is what gives anybody controlling the system what is going on within the system so that you can shut down or go forward. But it will interest you to know, Mr. President, that for 41 years, this country has continually paid for this SCADA, and it has never been finished. And right now, another contract has been signed by the World Bank for another SCADA system, which we have been continually striving with for 41 years. Number 7, financial prudence. We have seen that even with the amount of money coming from both internally and from the World Bank and from other donor agencies, we do not see the prudence in the spending of this. Number 8, the Presidential Power Initiative set up by Mr. President, former president, continuing with this particular president, we are yet to see any impact from it. And so we can go ahead, Mr. President, given all these anomalies that we have seen, to our recommendations. Recommendation 1, There is the urgent need for the Senate to take decisive action on this. And the Senate may urge Mr. President to convene a high-level situation room with all the critical stakeholders, because without power, we will not develop this country. Number two, all the respective MDAs should produce a comprehensive report detailing how their previous allocations made to them for this particular SCADA system, which has been on and off for 41 years, has been used. Number three, recommendation three, that we must ensure that this SCADA technology is deployed fully so that we can eliminate all the real-time monitoring, response time, and every other thing that has bedeviled this sector. Number four, that the Transmission Company of Nigeria should, in collaboration with NAPTIN, establish training programs for their technical personnel, especially for this, because we have found that also ignorance and lack of knowledge has helped in putting people who do not understand these systems to run such systems. Number five, that the Senate should urge the relevant security and law enforcement agencies to develop a comprehensive strategy for the power infrastructure in Nigeria. At a particular time, Mr. President, I also propose on this floor to have a separate arm of government that will take care of power infrastructure. But I think at that time, it was stepped down under the David Mark regime because they said that it was the responsibility of civil defense to do that. But we can see today that it is impossible for civil defense to fight insurgents who go to break down the power infrastructure, especially in the north. And I think yesterday, we were also told by Bayelsa that for about 5 months or so, Bayelsa never had any power because all the critical lines going into Bayelsa were vandalized and brought down by criminals. Number six, that relevant stakeholders operating the national grid should adopt community engagement programs because it belongs to us, so that communities do not see it as their own. As a government infrastructure, not knowing that it affects their own lives. Number seven, that licensed operators in the power sector should prioritize investment in upgrading their infrastructure. We have noticed, Mr. President, that all the distribution companies have not invested in their infrastructure since they took over, since 2013 till date. And if you need power anywhere, you buy your own infrastructure, you buy your cable, you also buy your transformers, you buy everything. And government continues to invest, not seeing anything reciprocal from these people. And that discourse should adopt the transparent practices in load management and rejection. Because what we also noticed from our interaction was that distribution companies do not even accept power sometimes when they are being given. And that causes problem within the system. Because when power is produced, it must go somewhere. It cannot be stored. And that also gives a problem to the system. That, number nine, that the Electricity Power Regulation should implement performance-based incentives to the discos to align with their financial interests. Number 10, that TCN and FGN Power should conduct a comprehensive review of all abandoned projects in the power sector so that we can have a smooth operation of the national grid. Number 11, that NEC should ensure strict enforcement mechanism for compliance with regulatory requirements for both the GENCOs, the TCN, and the DISCOs, and prescribed penalties must be imposed for non-compliance. Number 12, that stakeholders for the operation of the national grid, which include the GENCO, the TCN, should regularly do independent and self-assessment and audit of their compliance with regulatory requirements. Number 13, that to ensure financial prudence, accountability, and public trust, all agencies, that is DCN, FGN Power, Federal Ministry of Power, and other government entities who receive budgetary allocation from the National Assembly should periodically disclose to the public through financial reports related to the power sector investment, and that should include details of expenditures on project status, outcomes, and everything. Because we've also found that part of the issue is that they say that the people prefer to buy jeeps, buy Hiluxes, buy all manners of vehicles, and not invest in the infrastructure itself with all the monies they have. And Mr. President, finally, that there should be a multifaceted approach which involves investment in infrastructure upgrade, strengthening the regulatory oversight, enhancing the security measures for the assets, and addressing the commercial practices of DISCO while implementing modern monitoring systems to ensure a more resilient national grid. Mr. President, at the back of this report is also an attachment which we have put that will show to everyone everything concerning the power sector as an appendix, so that those who do not completely understand will also have an idea of everything that we have all stated concerning the power sector. I so submit, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ningi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me from the onset thank Senator Abaribe and members of his committee for not only delivering a very timely, but also a comprehensive report on the issue of power in Nigeria. Mr. President, over the years, over the 2 decades, power has become a very serious problem that no government has been able to tackle. And we had reports from both Saudis of the National Assembly at several times in the past. It is imperative, Mr. President, to acknowledge attempts have been made, especially by legislative houses of both the Senate and the House of Representatives in trying to bring to fore the problems of power in Nigeria. It is imperative to listen to the findings and some of the reports by the committee. By your leave, I will read number 4. aging infrastructure challenges. The minister pointed out that the grid is over 50 years old with obsolete and vulnerable infrastructure subjected to regular vandalism. He asserted that until a comprehensive overhaul of the network is completed, grid disturbance will remain a persistent challenge. He also mentioned ongoing efforts to revamp the power system through the Presidential Power Initiative. Furthermore, on page 6, causes of grid collapses. The MD, in furtherance of his presentation, outlined various causes of grid collapse from the generation side, including unpredictable behavior of generating units, inadequate gas supply, poor coordination of maintenance schedules for gas-fired plants, and negative frequency responses. On the transmission side, he identified several factors contributing to the grid failure, such as lack of operational reserves, support skills, inadequate SCADA and energy management system, vandalism of critical transmission lines, and insufficient communication facilities. Mr. President, we need your attention. No, I won't go on.
Sorry, you're addressing the Senate.
So, Mr. President, it is like a mirror image analysis. If we put a mirror and you look at the mirror, if you're an ugly person, the mirror will show. If you're handsome, the mirror will show. Whatever the mirror sees.
The mirror shows what you are.
Yeah,
but
the mirror shows what you are.
Nobody can see himself as being ugly or anything. You are always fine.
So, Mr. President, breaking that mirror.
Use powder.
Mr. President, breaking that mirror will not change what you have seen in the mirror, because that is the reality. What am I driving at? Here we have the MD of that processor, the minister of that processor, they are admitting these serious lapses. So over the years, if a minister is admitting it, who should have been doing the job? Senate President? Chairman of the Committee on Power? No. Therefore, over the years, Mr. President, some of this clear indiscretion have not been met with any censure. And therefore, consequently, whoever finds himself will now sit on those lapses. When you are a minister and you run down the narrative that this is an obsolete infrastructure, incompetent staffs, what are you supposed to do? One of the findings that I am not so happy with, I thought the committee would probably take about 20 years down the line and bring about the budgetary allocation to power sector, year in, year out, so that whoever reads this report will find that there was a lot of money that has gone down the drain. And those monies, some people were responsible for spending their monies. And therefore, the report, in my opinion, should have indicated further scrutiny of the spending of the power ministry in the last 2 decades, and try to clearly apportion blames for those who were responsible for such indiscretion. The report was okay, but sir, in my opinion, if we continue to churn out reports without indications of those people who should be sanctioned, we are not making a headway. And I would like Mr. President and distinguished senators to reflect on what I said, because this power is key. And there was nowhere in this report that suggested the continuous abuse of power grid will stop. And that means tomorrow it can happen. The next tomorrow it can happen. Then what do we do as a nation? What can the parliament do beyond this? So, Mr. President, the report was well articulated, but I think we need to make sure that something will have a takeaways for the future purposes of the for parliamentary activity. Thank you.
Well, you were speaking for and against, and I know that you were patronizing distinguished Senator Baribe. You are short of saying that the report was not insightful enough. But you pointed out that the sanctions were not well articulated, the financial inputs of repair of each of the breakdown of the national grid were not indicated, and the allocations by this National Assembly to the power sector on a yearly basis were not indicated, and even the usage, because in the interaction with them, we should have been able to know what they use whenever the so-called national grid collapses. What do they use to revive it? Because it could also mean that those who revive it can also collapse it. We have had instances where people remove armored cables, and the people who remove the armored cables are people who fix the armored cables. Then they go back to get contract, and they bring the same armored cables and fix. Whenever they are broke, they go back and move them. And then the Niger Delta, it's not everybody that can break crude oil pipeline, because sometimes the crude oil pipelines are deep down in the ocean. So it has to be done by experts who were there when the pipelines were installed. Maybe they've retired from various oil companies, they go back, break the pipelines, and the same companies are invited to repair the pipelines whenever they don't have enough job. Go to another section, break the pipelines, they will be invited to do cost analysis, and then they repair the pipeline. So it will need strong action on the part of the minister of power. And then there should also be a recommendation of what should the Senate do to bring this into an end. We need to invite a committee on the security, including the army. It's a very critical national aspect. We need to involve the armed forces, police, civil defense. We need to invite them, those who are responsible for protection of this all important national assets. It's critical to the industrialization of Nigeria. It's critical to the development. It's critical to investment. So the report almost reporting the interaction to us. The report is not telling us what we must do to bring this to an end. Nigerians want to see an end, just like insecurity, like bandits, like when we used to have very serious issues, Boko Haram. What do we do? Because at the time it was almost being turned into business. I think that's exactly what is happening in the power sector. There is even the idea of national grid collapsing is anathema. Not something that is known to our country's infrastructural development. It's not something that will encourage any investment. So we must I was just thinking whether maybe part of your resolutions may involve setting up a stock committee to now do proper investigation of the monies sunk into the power sector and why we are where we are. The committee could do it, but the committee is already very friendly with the people they interacted with. From what they are saying, the distinguished Senator Baribe, you are a gentleman, and we must call a spade a spade. We will look at your recommendations one after the other, but we will not accept further collapse of the national grid, and therefore we must find a way to bring it to an end. I don't know how we are going to do that, but before we look at the recommendations, I want you to think in that direction. And also, there is need for legislative action on the activities of the discos. And Transmission Company of Nigeria is exclusively in the hands of the federal government. How are they running it? There are so many gencos that are producing power, and they cannot transmit power because up to now, investment has not entered us. I'm telling you, I built and completed an ongoing power sector in Akwa Ibom. We were producing just 191 megawatts, and they couldn't take more than 80 because the second transmission line from Ikorabasi to Ikotebwene stopped at a place called Ekbarakwa. That had remained so for 15 years. The only one that we have that can take up to 80 megawatts is the one that moves from Ikorabasi to Iket. That's the only one. And then within the aluminum smelter company, we have 600 megawatts of electricity lying there, even when that place was not privatized. For 10 years, nobody touched 600 megawatts. And 600 megawatts of power could save at least 2 or 3 states. At that time, what were the requirements? Cross Versa. What were the requirements of Abia, Kwaibo, Douglas, and Port Harcourt? 600 in one location in Nicaragua. So we should be able to go deeper to know what are they doing. They can't even carry the power from one place to the other. And all the infrastructure we made, like I made sure that we, in my state, I had about 92 to 93% coverage. I used to buy transformers almost on a weekly, monthly basis, and then we strung the lines, and then we gave light to community. But guess what? When those things were given to the discos through the privatization, the discos never paid 1 naira for any of those things. Instead, those are the things they are managing and making money. They are not making a single investment. And I think it's applicable to almost all the discos. The intention was to give it to them so they can revamp the existing infrastructure and then improve upon it. But instead, they went there to manage it. Just like what is happening in the oil sector. You will see oil well producing up to 80,000, how to producing as much as maybe 80,000 barrels of crude oil a day. And then it is given to an individual who continues to manage it without paying cash cow, without investing. And then eventually, after 3 or 4 years, it comes down to 15,000 barrels of crude oil. Some come down to as low as 5. But the man is still flying his private jet because he made no investment. He had recovered his money within a year. He made no investment and he's not ready. So, what should government do under such circumstances? Shouldn't we revoke such licenses, take over, and then improve the production? That is what is happening in the power sector today. So I was thinking that part of your interaction with them will involve asking them, what do we do to improve on the power distribution in the country? The discos have failed, as far as I'm concerned. The people just took the discos, sat down, managed what the governors and the federal state governments put in. They are making their money. No matter where it collapses, they are not interested. So it is going down. Distribution is going down. They took distribution at 90% in any particular state. So long as they are making money, instead they will increase the tariff in order to make up for the loss of the infrastructure. So it's very wide. I don't know whether the recommendations are far-reaching enough, but we will look at line by line. Yes, discussion.
You recall, Mr. Senate President, by your leave, this report, I'm not a member of the Power Committee. This report was not a sequel of timelines, of outlines that the Senate gave them. It was the activity within. So if we want to go further, the Senate now can give them further instruction to add to this report and bring it within a specified period of time. And I'm sure the chairman has made it very clear that this was just their in-house activity. So if the Senate decides to now say, okay, go further, give us A, B, C, D, we can just do that, sir.
I also thought the report would include something like inviting the operators of TCN, the Minister of Power, and others to appear before the Senate to tell us what they are doing to stop further collapse of the national grid, and also to tell us why the discos are still in the hands of individuals who cannot improve on the infrastructure years after they were privatized, and also to tell us how can we move the power sector forward when the transmission is still 100% owned by the federal government, and we are saying that we are privatized the sector. How do you privatize the sector? When the GENCO, you give the generating company a license, and it produces 100 megawatts of electricity, and they cannot transmit because TCN is yet to provide the transmission line. So what do you do? So I don't know. You understand what I mean? So it's like we are not making progress in the power sector, and yet billions of dollars have been sunk into the power sector. So something is wrong somewhere that this August Assembly should find out. Something is wrong somewhere. So that's my personal opinion. I don't know whether you have a solution.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. My name is Osita Izunaso. I represent Imo West. Mr. President, with your deep knowledge of this sector, I don't think there's anything to add again because you have read everything. Maybe I thought you have read the report before now, but from the way you're explaining out of personal experience. Maybe as a governor of Akwa Ibom, you have had first-hand experience in all these matters. But I would like us to depart here today by this Senate agreeing to declare an emergency in the power sector and allow the committee, this same committee, to go back, give them more time to go back to deal with some of the issues that you have raised, because you have raised very fundamental issues. Because a situation where the committee recommendation is saying we ask Mr. President to invite stakeholders. No, we need more legislative action on the matter. We don't need to ask Mr. President to do it. We have all it takes to do it. So I am saying, coming with the emotion, Mr. President, that we do receive the report of the Committee on Power, but ask them to go back and take another 4 weeks to deal with the real issues. Because they are saying that the agencies will tell us how much they have received and how much they have expended. Why they should be telling us, the committee should be telling us. It should be in the report. How much have we expended in the power sector in the past 20 years? Who are involved? I would have been towing the line of ad hoc committee. But because Senator Abaribe is not very knowledgeable in this sector, we will ask that committee to go back, give them another 4 weeks, but this nation will declare state of emergency in the power sector. This committee did not even contain anything about band A, band B, that people are being charged now. People are paying through the nose to even light one bulb in their house. So these are not some of the things that we should be tolerated. So, Mr. President, this is my motion.
And villages are contributing money to buy transformers, and the discos are there, and then the idea of estimated billing, where they don't even give you meters. and then even when they don't give you light, they come and drop money, they come and drop a bill for you to pay. So the Senator Abaribe, we know you are very, very knowledgeable in the power sector, and you've been on it for a long time. Last one I said you are very familiar. I hope I didn't say derogatory. You don't need derogatory, man. I just said you are familiar with the power sector. I mean, you've headed the committee. This is not the first time. So you know what is wrong. But we are concerned that the citizens are paying for power they are not getting. Many of them are being billed through estimation because there is no meter. And even the discos cannot even provide meter. They are not adding value. They are not providing transmitters, transmission, transformers. So what was the essence of this privatization? So we make the laws. We can tinker with the laws. We can abrogate the laws. We can repeal the laws. We can request that the federal government to take back those things from them, and so that we can revamp the power sector. So I think it should go higher than this. We should invite even the Minister of Power to come here and tell us what he's doing in terms of bringing people to book. We have not seen people being prosecuted for some of these things. Like I said, people just took Adams Oshimole, Senator Adams Oshimole. You are a governor now, and you know that you gave light to a lot of communities. You bought transformers. Since you left office, no new transformer. And the people that took over are just making money from those your transformers and those lines you put. And they are not adding value at all. Instead, if a community's light collapses, they go away. The community will stay for a year or 2 years without light. Are we going to accept that? We're a parliament. We made the law for them to go to that stage. If they are not doing the correct thing, we can reverse that law. This parliament has the power. We can reverse the law.
Mr. President, may God bless you. And I pray that under your leadership, this Senate will find the courage to stop the extortion, abuse of power, lack of consumer protection, and barefaced stealing by various discos. Mr. President, everything you said, including reminding us that nothing is foreclosed, that this parliament under your leadership has the power to revoke any wrongdoing that had been done. The justice of anything that is wrong is that it should be corrected. Personally, sir, people will say I committed class suicide in terms of NSC position with regards to private ownership when I supported, against the wish of my colleagues, the idea of privatizing electricity. My main argument then was that the beauty of capitalism and of private ownership is that in seeking to make profit, they will render a service. But the danger of public ownership is that whether they render a service or not, they draw on the taxpayer treasury in the name of correcting what is there. I could never have imagined, as it is today, that a private person will collect money for services he did not render. And the Nigerian people are helpless. Even we here as privileged class have had to buy the transformer that I use here in the heart of Abuja. And to install it, I have to persuade, negotiate, and even effect payment to Abuja distribution, whatever, to connect the transformer I have procured personally with my resources. And hereafter, this transformer becomes the property of the disco. And every month, I am asked to pay bill on brand A or whatever.
Under your transformer.
Like you said, sir, every state governors, or most, spend public funds, buy transformers for communities. And then you still have to contribute money. Many of us, very soon, when we go back to the electorate,
They are going to tell us that for 1 year, for 2 years, they've had no light. What is the problem? No transformer. And then they ask you, a senator, to go out and buy the transformer. You look for the money, you buy the transformer. And then they say, NEPA says you have to pay for them to connect the transformer to their grid. If cables are 40, you buy the cable for them to install it. Even right now, I have requests from several communities asking me to buy the transformer and to get them connected. And yet, sir, the key element in distribution is transformer and cables, among others. So if these ones are now being procured by state government using public funds and individuals using their personal resources, what is the cost that these discos are incurring? Now, worse, the money they claim to have paid, because the logic of privatization was to inject private capital into these services. In truth, they went to borrow from Nigeria depositor funds in various banks, thereby killing some of those banks who have now become the liability of AMCON, which itself is also a contradiction about the logic of free market. And what they have borrowed, Mr. President, since the privatization took place, what they have borrowed through CBN and other sources is 10 times more than the amount they claim to have paid to become owners of those discos. Lastly, sir, as things stand, discos own no more than 60%, quote, own. So it is arguable where the total money you have borrowed from public sources is more than your private capital, whether you can still claim to be privately owned. 40%, as we speak, still belong to the federal government. But sir, there are no governing councils. There is no governing board for these discos. So federal government owns 60% of a business, and it has no say in the board of those companies. So there is no corporate governance. The one of Edo is owned by a pharmacist. The wife is a banker. The pharmacy becomes the chairman. The banker becomes the MD. They mismanage Edo economy, Delta economy, Ondo economy, Ekiti economy, and we are down right now in crisis. Even I, sir, that I don't live in Benin, my bill every month, I can't even afford it. So, Mr. President, I support the motion by my very good friend who lost an earlier motion, thanks to the vigilance of Mr. Senate President and your commitment to protect the poor. But this motion can benefit from a radical review, including the option of revoking the ill-conceived, ill-executed privatization and revisit it in line with the renewed agenda of Mr. President, that no one shall pay for services to a private Nigerian who did not render that service. We are going to a petrol station to buy fuel without a pump. And the person selling the fuel tells us this is the amount of liter I have injected. You have no means to verify it. May your leadership, sir, uncommon as it is, be the one that gives us the political will to revisit and protect Nigerians, rich or poor, who have been victimized by the fake new owners of this discourse. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well guided. In fact, I have to be very honest with you. The president's reform in this country will go to naught unless we take a critical look at what is going on in the electricity sector. I have to be very honest with you. It's a very serious matter. Because whether you like it or not, the essence of that privatization was for them to do what? Bring improvement, to inject new funds, to ensure seamless operations. But what we are seeing here is totally a different thing entirely. People just took advantage. They are not refunding money to states for even the infrastructure they took. And like you pointed out, federal government still retains some quantum of shares in those discos, but there is no governing board, so federal government does not know what is going on there. Maybe there is an assistant director somewhere who is a member of the board, and then that reports to his wife. He does not report to federal government. So what happens to the people? So chairman of power, we can't answer some of these questions unless we go deeper. And we must be prepared to recommend necessary legislative actions. We have a right to revoke even in fact, we can repeal the various acts that made the federal government to commit these blunders, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm scared because if we come here and then we just go through these recommendations the way they are, it will look as if we are just trying to touch the symptoms without touching the disease. So, distinguished Senator Abaribe, we wish to advise that we step this down until we come up with a serious motion, giving you powers, giving you further guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. President. In view of everything that's been said, I rise to withdraw this report.
Mr. President, sir, I thought there's already a motion and well supported by Adams or Shomole. We will help the members of the committee. I'm a member of that committee.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
What was the motion?
The motion was to add another 4 weeks and to consider part of these revelations and also your contributions. We'll go back and then report back progress, what Ningi will always call progress.
The idea is to report legislative progress. That is not what we want. What we want is
no, it was just by the way. It's my friend.
We want to see actionable recommendations.
Exactly. That's what you said.
Actionable recommendations.
Yes.
On the issues we have raised.
Yes, Mr.
Why
President.
do we give out licenses to Gencos and they produce, and TCN cannot carry what they produce? That's one. What has the minister, since his appointment, done to address that issue? Why do we hand over transformers bought by states and local governments and individuals to discos, and then cables to discos, and they make money from those things without making, in fact, without maintenance, without injecting new funds, and distribution is deteriorating instead of improving? How can we develop the nation? Why do we have to allow individuals to buy transformers and then go to discos and plead with them to come and connect them to the national grid? And then thereafter, those transformers are owned by the discos. Those cables are owned by the discos without refunds. So it's a big problem. So if the motion has been moved, you can repeat your motion so that way we know we don't and make it comprehensive so that we don't waste much.
Thank you, Mr. President. My motion is that the Senate do declare state of emergency on the power sector and ask the Committee on Power to do a more holistic and all-encompassing job on the issue of power sector and report back to the Senate within 4 weeks. I so move, Mr. President.
No, I'm sure you want to say that we should return the report. Part of your recommendation will be that we should recommend to the president, because declaration of a state of emergency in the power sector is not a Senate function. It's an executive function. But the recommendations that will come before us can include that when a much more insightful action is taken in terms of the investigation. In fact, we are requesting investigation into the funds expended in the power sector in the last 10 to 20 years. We are saying why we want to investigate why the discos are not performing. We want to investigate why the collapse of the national grid is becoming more frequent, something that cannot happen in many countries. I want to investigate what the power minister has done, the actions taken so far to stop further collapse of the national grid, so it does not turn into another business, putting the entire country into darkness for certain people who do the repairs to make money. So and also, is it not possible for the Senate to repeal most of the laws that have made it impossible for the power sector to work, so that whatever reforms this administration will make, the renewed hope agenda will become realistic, where electricity works in Nigeria. So if we think that the committee can handle these suggestions and revert to us in 4 weeks, we can take it that you have moved a motion for extension of time within which the committee can do further work as suggested by the Senate, and that the extension of time 4 weeks. Dismissed Senator Oshimole, you have seconded the motion.
Yeah, I do with the amendment that it should include all options, all options, including possible reenactment, repeal and reenactment in a manner that will radically protect consumers.
Thank you.
I so second, sir, with those amendments.
Yes, you want to say, distinguished Senator Abaribe, you want to second the amendment?
Thank you. Mr. President, I so second, even though what this has done, as the comments from the Senate President, everybody, is that he has expanded the scope.
Yes.
We only focused on grid collapse.
No, that's why I said.
Now that he has expanded, we are very, and we asked for 6 weeks, Mr. President.
Okay. Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do extend the time within which the Committee on Power should come back to us and also increase the scope of work from just the collapse of the grid to the non-functionality of the TCN and the discos in the country. Those in support of the motion that they be given 6 additional weeks to complete the job and make strong recommendations to this August Assembly, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So let me thank members of the Senate for their contributions, and assure the committee that we will give you all the backing to enable you to do your work, and we hope that your recommendations will improve the situation of power supply in the country, and then also help the common man to realize the worth of what he's paying for, and stop all these estimated billings, and also give us a clear insight as to improvements, if any, made by the owners of the discos since they took over, and why the TCN has not been able to protect the transmission lines, and why we should even have continuous collapse of the national grid that will affect the entirety of the country. How can we develop? Can we have investment when these kind of things are allowed to happen? So if need be, we will invite security agents to also tell you, and you will recommend to us if we have to have a standby security force that will protect the national grid from further collapse. So I thank all of you for your contributions, and the 4 weeks or 6 weeks are added. We expect a more robust report before this. Thank you.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, in view of the other legislative activities scheduled for this afternoon, including public hearing by some of our committees, I rise to move that we stand down other items on our order paper, which is just one anyway, so that we can adjourn till Tuesday, the Tuesday, the 10th of December 2024 at 11 a.m. I so move, Mr. President.
The last item, Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved by the Senate Leader that will stand down the one item that is remaining on the other paper and adjourn till 10th of December 2024. I so second at 11 a.m.
Distinguished colleagues, a motion has been moved that we step down the one item on the agenda, on our agenda for the day, and then proceed to adjourn the 10th day of December 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against the motion say nay. The motion is carried. The Senate is hereby adjourned to the 10th day of December 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt.